This video is not intended for children.
Hello everyone. Our topic this week was requested by Requiem72. We'll be going over The Shadow Broker from the Mass Effect franchise. Spoilers ahead for Mass Effect Media.
To understand The Shadow Broker, we have to do just a bit of world setup, which is really galaxy/universe setup. The Mass Effect franchise is a sci-fi series that takes place in the relatively near future, with the first game picking up in 2183, only 163 years from now, which, by the way, is 80 years less than the United States of America has existed as a country. Just keep that in mind. Most of the games and other media are set in the Milky Way galaxy, and involve threats, great and small, to the greater galactic community. As can be expected of a setting that spreads across the entire galaxy, interstellar societies have all of the trappings of society one would expect of both modern and futurized cultures. Militaries, politics, social climbers, malcontents, and, importantly for this video, criminals and shadowy organizations. The Shadow Broker is an information broker, and runs the premier information gathering and dissemination service in the galaxy. In short, in a world that spans thousands of light years, the Shadow Broker is the best information gatherer and most cunning intelligence agent around.
The Shadow Broker is actually a title, and we know of at least 3 different people who have held that title, but we'll get to them a little bit later. For simplicity's sake, during this video, we'll be referring to the Shadow Broker as the Broker, or he, from this point on, since the figure who held the title for most of the games was male. The Shadow Broker holds an immense amount of power and influence thanks to his extensive information network. Nearly anything you want to know about nearly anyone can be acquired from the Shadow Broker's organization, assuming you can pay the right price, whether that payment be with currency, goods, services rendered, or favors to be paid in the future. And when we say nearly anything, we mean it. When the player actually finds themselves in the nerve center of the Shadow Broker's operations during the Lair of the Shadow Broker DLC for Mass Effect 2, a comment is made by one of your allies after glancing over the scale of information the Broker has at his disposal, in which she claims that she could start a war in about 10 minutes with everything they now have access to. As further proof of his ability to get information that no one should have, perusing through the Broker's personal dossiers indicates that he has up-to-date, as in accurate up to that very day, information on the personal activities of the Elusive Man, who, even without any further information, should clearly be someone who is very hard to spy on. For the Shadow Broker, in a very real sense, knowledge is power, but that power doesn't come free. In order to do business, people need to know you exist, and know at least enough about you to be able to contact you. But if people know you have access to this scale of information, especially the juicy kind that no one wants to get out, that puts a target on your back. Because of this, the Broker works almost exclusively through proxies, most of whom also work only with proxies. A tiny handful of operatives in the Broker's organization know who he is, have seen his face, or have met him directly. Most have never spoken with him. In fact, the Shadow Broker operative you can encounter earliest in Mass Effect 1 theorizes that the Shadow Broker is in fact not a person, but a group of people, since surely no one person could collate and use all of that data.
It may come as little surprise, then, that the Shadow Broker plays a part, large or small, in the important quest lines from each of the Mass Effect games. While many side missions involved the Shadow Broker in one form or another, in Mass Effect 1, his 2 most important contributions to the plot occur early on. One of the primary characters, Tali, had come across information that proved that Saren, the primary villain of the first game, was in fact a villain. Something you, the player, have to spend an unfortunate amount of time proving to the higher-ups. Since, after all, Saren is their golden boy. Both Saren and the player are members of an elite Black Ops program answering only to the leaders of the galactic community themselves. Having dirt on someone with that kind of power is usually hazardous to one's health. So she planned to sell the information to the Shadow Broker in exchange for protection from Saren. As far as the Broker was concerned, that was an even trade. So far, so good. But the Broker's contact assigned to meet Tali had turned traitor, and was in fact working for Saren, losing the Broker, the data, and endangering Tali's life. The player joins Tali in the firefight that results from said betrayal, and then the two join forces for the rest of the game. Due to Saren's interference, when the player comes knocking at the door of a different contact, looking for information on Saren, the Shadow Broker is only too happy to give the player everything they have on him, for free. intending to let the player act as the broker's proxy in exacting vengeance upon Saren for his interference with the broker's business.
The Shadow Broker's next major encounters with the player are less friendly. He is a neutral player after all. To the highest bidder goes the information, and maybe if it's advantageous he sells it to multiple buyers, case by case. Just business, you know? At the beginning of Mass Effect 2, the player dies, ejected from your ship as it explodes in orbit above a planet to which the player falls, wearing only combat armor, which is in no way intended to protect you from an atmo drop.
Well, you look good. The benefits of a redundant nervous system.
Yeah, humans don't have that.
Oh, it must have been painful then.
So, after that fiasco, the aliens who were secretly pulling Saren's strings, the true bad guys for the OG Mass Effect trilogy as a whole, contracted the Shadow Broker to acquire the player's body, as they wanted it for a number of scientific uses. The broker, in turn, hired a mercenary group to acquire the player's corpse, which they did. However, before the handoff could be made from Shadow Broker to evil aliens, Liara, one of the player's companions, with the help of Farron, one of the broker's operatives who turned temporary traitor when he found out who the broker was working with, stole the player's corpse and made off with it. Liara escaped with the body, but Farron was caught by the broker's loyal men. Thereafter, Liara turned the body over to the subordinates of the Elusive Man, who managed to bring the player back to life 2 years later. It happens, don't worry about it.
During those 2 years the player spends on an operating table, Liara becomes an information broker herself, more from necessity than anything else, as she searches desperately for Farron. She wouldn't have been able to secure the body of the player, who is either a very good friend or a lover, depending upon the player's choices, without Farron's help, and resultantly, she wants to track him down if he was still alive and free him from the Shadow Broker's clutches. The Shadow Broker is of course aware of this and tries to keep her in the dark. In Mass Effect 2, during the Lair of the Shadow Broker DLC, the Elusive Man, who among other things is something of a rival to the Shadow Broker in the secrecy and information trade, provides the player and Liara with information that, among other things, confirms that Farron is in fact still alive, though he's spent the last 2 years being tortured for his betrayal.
Using the rest of the info as a jumping point, the player and Liara track the Shadow Broker to his lair, which is ingeniously rendered invisible unless you know what to look for. The Shadow Broker's base of operations was a ship based on a planet with a curious bit of natural weather phenomena. The planet's day-night cycle was a few months long, which meant that the side of the planet facing its star was boiling hot, and the side facing deep space was bitterly cold. The collision of these two temperature extremes created a massive, violent, and constant pattern of storms in the Terminator line between day and night, meaning that there was a nasty storm in a slow-moving ring constantly raging across the planet. The broker's ship was designed to channel the power of the storm in order to power itself, and that same design kept the storm from pulling the ship apart, meaning that the ship glided around the planet in the depths of the perpetual storm, giving off little to no extra power readings that would look out of place if someone scanned the storm, and remained buried deep enough inside of the storm to be hidden from visual scans, rendering it virtually invisible.
When the player and Liara arrive, they fight their way through the Shadow Broker's personal security before encountering the Broker himself. The Broker encountered during the game is the second known Shadow Broker. We are never given his real name, only the title Shadow Broker and an alias he used prior to that title. We do get some of his history though. The second Broker was a Yogg, an alien species with that rare combination of physical superiority and mental acuity. The Yogg are a race of incredibly large and robust aliens hailing from a planet with roughly 20th century, i.e. modern day, technology. They were discovered and approached by the more advanced races of the galaxy, some decades prior to the games, but the Yogg's violent nature led to the planet being labeled a no-fly zone, and they were left to continue with their own devices. The Yogg developed as the apex predators of their planet, big, strong, fast, with multiple sets of eyes, all used for hunting and watching body cues in their prey, which also makes them very good at spotting lies through body language. On top of this, the Yogg are, if the Broker is a common example of his species at least, very intelligent and adaptable. They are also highly aggressive, with a society based upon superiority. Groups of Yogg do not coordinate and work together until a leader emerges, either through brute force, cunning, or both. When they do, even those beaten to reach the top serve loyally and without holding a grudge. Culturally speaking, at least, like any society, there are exceptions to the rule.
More than 60 years prior to Mass Effect 2, the first known Shadow Broker who may have been the first ever or just the most recent in a line of shadow brokers. We don't know. One character claims the first known broker would have been the first broker, period, but there are no other indications for or against that declaration, so we really don't know. Regardless, the first known shadow broker sent operatives to the Yogg's planet in order to secure a Yogg to study, presumably for the intent of use as heavy troops and/or bodyguards. The second broker is the Yogg that eventually went with them, willingly, presumably because he was curious about the greater interstellar world out there. He surpassed all expectations, quickly learning multiple languages and putting more experienced agents to shame in terms of political maneuvering on top of his already phenomenal physical skills. So, he was made a team leader by the first broker and served in that capacity for an unknown period of time, before some combination of his natural aggression and cunning led the first broker to determine that the second broker had to be eliminated. The first broker, however, failed in his attempted assassination, and the second broker took his place, with most of the organization none the wiser, as the Yogg ran the Shadow Broker's operations for the next 60 years leading up to the events of the DLC.
When confronted, the broker made it clear through casual conversation that he knew far too much about all assembled parties before being goaded into battle. It's a tough fight, with the broker combining his natural physical abilities with the advanced technologies at his disposal. But when all is said and done, the player and Liara stand victorious over the second broker's corpse. It is at this point, with her goals reached, the Shadow Broker dead and Pharaon rescued, that it is decided that the best course of action would be for Liara to replace the Yogg as the third Shadow Broker. And considering the player had put an end to virtually anyone who knew the Shadow Broker's true identity, once again, no one was the wiser. In Mass Effect 3, Liara continues her role as the third Shadow Broker, continuing to be one of the player's closest allies. In fact, when the Elusive Man's forces locate the Shadow Broker's ship, intent on seizing control of both it and the Shadow Broker's information network, Liara downloads all of the most important functions and information from the ship's archives and rams the broker's ship into her attacker's vessel while escaping in a shuttle. She spends the rest of the game coordinating her information network from the player's ship, helping to fight the war that the big evil aliens have launched against the galaxy at large in her own way, using the broker's network to transmit information, coordinate and acquire supplies, and bully stubborn factions into fighting for the survival of all life in the galaxy! One final note. When we said that the Shadow Broker had an important role in all of the Mass Effect games, we weren't kidding, as it is later revealed that the Yogg Shadow Broker helped to fund the secret project that created Mass Effect Andromeda's AI, Sam, who is integral to the player's success.
And that's basically the Shadow Broker, premier espionage and information specialist of the Mass Effect franchise. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and maybe share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see us do in the future, do like Requiem72 and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore, let's play, or other, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more like it, hit that subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, click the link on the left.
Thank you to all of our patrons for making these videos possible.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.